This episode of Radcast Outdoors is brought to you by PK Lures, Bow Spider, and High Mountain Seasonings.
Fish on! Hey, Radcast is on.
Hunting, fishing, and everything in between. This is Radcast Outdoors. Here are David Merrill and Patrick Edwards.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Radcast Outdoors. I'm Patrick Edwards.
And I'm David Merrill.
And we are back in the studio today. It is another very cold, wintry day in Wyoming, but you know what? It's a good place to be. It's been a bit challenging on the snow side. We've had lots of snow in the state, but you know, if you like winter sports, you're in heaven right now.
Well, it was 55 degrees warmer than it was a week or two ago.
Yeah, that is true. That's hard to believe. But
yeah, it's still single digits, but at least there's not a minus sign. The wind was a bit nippy today.
Yeah, it was. But at least it wasn't like Cheyenne or Casper wind, so we'll take that. But anyway, it's good to be back on the podcast, and I've got a friend of mine in the studio today that it's really cool to have him on here because I've been seeing him over the years down at the store where he worked for a long time, Rocky Mountain Discount Sports, Kevin Hermann. It's good to have you on the show, man. And you know, you've been like a mainstay in Riverton at the Rocky Mountain Discount Sports for a long time, and you finally retired.
Finally, yeah. And Rocky Mountain has been really good to me. As I probably said 1,000 times, I had the best job in town, and still feel that way. Even though I'm retired, it was what a fabulous way to pay the rent and take care of life and enjoy life. So yeah, it was a great opportunity at Rocky Mountain. It was a little over 30 years of growing up and learning.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Rocky Mountain Sports is like the mainstay sporting goods store of Riverton. Like, it's on the main drag as you're going through town. If you need minnows, if you need lures, if you need shotgun shells, whatever you need, you stop there. And there's even a whole bunch of like Hallmark cards and kitchen stuff, all kinds of things. It's a great little shop. So I wanted to ask you, like, tell me about that journey for you. When did it start and how did it start?
Wow. So, yeah, how much time do we have? So, for the folks who know Riverton and even really Wyoming, there had been buy right drugs all over the state. There were 7 of them. And over a period of time, the bigger box stores started easing in. This is pre-Kmart days. And so there was Kmart's, and then there started to be Walgreens and things like that, and bigger chain stores. And these smaller mom and pop stores were having a hard time. And I was managing the sporting goods department for Buy Right here. I had kind of fell into that position. I had been a sales rep on the road, and actually my wife's family's from Riverton. I graduated high school here in Riverton. We had been living in Casper. Our second child was about to be born. Yeah, he was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain. And we were pretty concerned that, I couldn't be on the road, couldn't leave my wife with the possible challenges that might be happening. And so we settled back to Riverton, wanted to be around family, and I started looking for work and ended up at Buy Right. And then Buy Right decided they were going to close. So as life happens, but there's a gentleman out of Cody, Jim McCarter, who had a small sporting goods store in Cody and a nice grocery store. And actually I called him and said, hey, Buy Right's going to close. It's a beautiful location. You really need a sporting goods store here. And 3 days later, he showed up and said, well, let's talk. And didn't take but probably 15 minutes. He put the deal together, and boom, there I am. I got a job. So that's how and that was in 92. So, been a lot of years there.
Wow.
Yeah. pretty amazing.
So Riverton can thank you for bringing Rocky Mountain Discount Sports to Riverton.
Yeah, and it was, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I needed a job. So, and I had been told that actually from the Berkeley fishing salesman said, hey, there's a guy in Cody looking to put a sporting goods store in Jackson. You ought to call him. And I found his phone number. This is back before you could Google anybody. And so it took a little work, but I got his number and called him and said, hey, this is a great location. The business is closing just due to the fact that John Preto, who was the owner of By-Right, was getting up in age, and he had enough, made enough, and just wanted to retire, and really had not had any great offers on the business, so he was just going to close. The guys thought about it for a little bit and came down and said, looks good, we'll take it. So that's how that all happened. It was pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
I can remember 06, I came into town to do an antelope hunt as a non-resident and stopped in that little store to pick up my tags and whatever odds and ends and bits we needed left over, right? And that little store had more inventory jocked in it than some of the big box stores have in their whole place. I mean, you did a stellar job of
we
utilizing
filled it up.
space. Yeah,
we filled it up. We had a lot of fun, and it was what a fabulous education, and just the overall opportunities of just the daily meeting of some of the neatest people. It's amazing over the counter how many people that are just unique individuals that you don't know till you talk to them. And I've just been blessed, literally blessed to be able to meet some great people, do a lot of great things. Gosh, played hard and worked hard.
I was going to ask you about that. What are some of your favorite memories of working at Rocky Mountain and some of the opportunities that it afforded you?
Oh gosh, dude, there was just so many. It was interesting in the early years because I really didn't know what I was doing at all. I got keys thrown at me and said, "Hey, hire some employees, open a bank account, and you now run a store." And that was. There were my wife and I spent a lot of long nights figuring out how to do books and how to run the thing. And I had Thursdays off. So every Thursday I decided, okay, I'm going to learn this business. I am going to learn this. So every Thursday on my day off, I would go somewhere and do something with one of my customers. So I might be pheasant hunting with one. I might be chukar hunting with one. I might go ice fishing. I might be sitting in a boat walleye fishing. And that's how I learned the business. And it's how I learned the customers was Thursdays. Get out there and every Thursday was kind of a new adventure. And a great way to learn the business. Great way. A lot of fun.
So from the manufacturer side of the table here, as kind of the middleman, the retailer, the brick and mortar person, right? You're going to NBS Sports Inc. You're going to these big buy group shows. There's a lot of competitive products. How do you discern what you're going to put on your shelf and put in front of your customer? Because I mean, there's a variety of lures, there's a variety of rods, there's a variety of firearms, there's even a variety of bow carriers, right?
Oh, there is, and I'm certainly not going to act like I had a crystal ball and could figure all of it out. I made plenty of mistakes looking at a product and saying, "Man, that is fantastic." But after a period of time, you learn, and part of the game that we would do would be that if we had to sit and explain to someone a lot about the product, we probably shouldn't have it in the store, because you had to sit, you had to show somebody every bit of it. Now, it's one thing when you got a pair of binoculars or a spotting scope and there's something new and you're explaining how to actually focus a binocular and actually what all the numbers mean, because it's amazing how many folks just don't know. And so it's that part of it is the fun part of the business. The other part is that when someone hands you a new ice fishing tip up that is fully automatic and it takes you a long time to set it up, now you have to explain that, and that's hard. So filtering through the products is that's the fun part. That's the game. Is man, that looks cool. I'd like to have that. If I'd like to have it, I bet other people will too.
So a lot of people, they clamor for anything to get into the outdoor industry. They want to work at an outdoor store. They want to work for, a Bow Spider, a PK Lures, a High Mountain, something to be associated with the outdoors. What kind of advice would you give them if they're looking to go into like what you were working in, which is the retail side of that outdoor experience? What kind of advice would you give somebody who's listening to this that's considering that?
Well, that's a big question. It really is a big question, because I'm pretty old school. When I started and as I ran business, we didn't have internet. We didn't have YouTubes. We didn't have all of the wonderful tools that you have now. I mean, as I was driving here to come do the podcast here, I was thinking about some of the things that I had seen that were wonderful. And I remember when the first neoprene waders came out. Oh my gosh, that was earth shaking.
Mm-hmm.
We'd all been wearing rubber waders and canvas waders, and now there's this new product, and you don't drown when you fall down, where rubber waders could fill full of water, pull you to the bottom. They were cold, they were heavy, they were cumbersome, and now you've got this nice neoprene wader. Since then, now we have breathable, lightweight, phenomenal, great pockets. And that is the thing in the industry now that is just absolutely amazing, is that it's a pretty chic business now, and a place to be. And backpacks are fabulous, and hiking boots are so much better than they used to be, and clothing is more technical, and geez, you can stay outside a long time now, and it used to be we had waffle thermal underwear and you layered up. Carhartts and that. So it has changed. But back to the question of somebody wanting to get into it, really you just have to show up and want to know the product and learn the product. And you got to be able to talk to people. Mm-hmm. And that's really what it amounts to. You just got to be a people person.
Yeah, if you're going to work in retail, you have to be willing to talk to people. You have to be friendly. You have to be approachable, and also show like a passion and a knowledge for the product, right? Like
you do have to. And if you're going to succeed, and as we all know, you can pick up your telephone and order anything you want from halfway across the country and have it at your house in 3 days. So the challenge now is that if you're going to be in a box store and you're in that mom and pop sporting goods store, you're going there for a reason. Hopefully you'll have someone there that says, hey, this is why these boots are $290 instead of $120 or $55 that you find at another store. And that's the difference. And that's what we tried really hard to do is, if you walked in and said, hey, I want a GPS, there's more than one model. So what are you doing with it? How do you want to run it? What are your plans? And of course, now you can, as a consumer, you can learn these things. And the evolution of the customer and the evolution of retail sales is, boy, that's a moving target. It is really a moving target. But what a fun challenge.
So going back to some of your trips that you did, are there some that stuck out in your mind where maybe things went really well or really badly on those Thursdays?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, anybody that is outdoors has had a story. I mean, oh yeah. Yeah. I've got some great stories that we decided. I had a customer one time say, let's go chase some hop in my truck, and I've got my son. We got him out of school, just out of school, and 3:30 in the afternoon, and he hops out of the truck and starts airing the tires down. And my son, who's young, says, "Dad, what's he doing?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, son, but we'll figure this out." And his gentleman airs his tires down and takes out across the mud flats at Boyson. And we're driving across the lake, and my son's like, "Dad, is this safe?" "Well, I don't know, son. We'll find out." And we're driving pretty fast right across the mud flats. It was at the causeway, and the lake was very low.
Yeah.
It was in the fall, and crusted mud out there. And all of a sudden, we hear water, and the brakes went on, and the truck sank to about the mirrors. And,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we crawl out the windows and got the handyman jacks out and lifted up the truck and got some planks out. We did finally get the truck out, and my son said, "Is this the way you're supposed to do this, Dad?" "No, son, this is not." So yeah, we've had some adventures.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's one going kind of south.
That one went south. Yeah.
What's a good one where, maybe you had just like an epic day fishing or hunting?
Gosh,
or something?
I've been blessed with some fabulous fishing trips, and I just recently had one where the new manager of Rocky Mountain, Richard Bybee, Richard and I were up at Trail Lake ice fishing, and two of the employees from Rocky Mountain were actually up late season elk hunting and saw our vehicle and came out on the ice. So one of them says, "Hey, so tell me about your fish finder." And we've got the new Garmin's and
Panoptics.
Man, they're nice. And they had not ever seen them. So I'm showing them, and I said, "Now, see, that's a fish right there on the screen. And let me show you." And wham, my rod goes down. Kind of nice. I got an audience. Rod goes down. I'm fighting and fighting and fighting. And I had two rods out. And boy, this fish is tangled up in the second rod. We're kind of have a little rodeo going. And I get the fish, and it comes by, and its tail is bigger than the 8-inch hole.
Uh-oh.
And it's a brown. And now I'm a little excited. Ooh. And it's a beautiful brown. So I'm working it, and we get it close. And we were going to for sure release it. So, we got to figure out how to get this brown one, 4-pound fluorocarbon line, through this hole. And Richard reaches in with both hands and can't get him around its head. It's that big.
Oh my gosh.
And we're just, you always hear fish stories, but this was a solid 8-pound fish. Just absolutely gorgeous. And we get it close. We can't quite, we've only got about 4 inches of ice. So it's really not pointed up the hole. You don't have, when you have 18 inches of ice, it's going to stay a little longer in the hole. Mm-hmm. 4 inches, it doesn't stay long. So breaks my line and takes off, and I'm pouting. But I had an audience. This was kind of nice. I got to show off. And one of the other guys goes, "He's still on your other rod." And it was tangled in the other line.
Oh, yeah.
So we start bringing it in. I start bringing it in backwards with the other line. And we get it up to the hole again and broke off again. So I lost the same fish twice. So that was, but it was fun, and it was a beautiful, beautiful brown. The next weekend, Richard and I went back up there, and Richard got a 25-inch brown. So it was, I'm sure mine was a lot bigger than that.
Yours was at least 30 inches.
Yeah, way bigger. But that was pretty fun. That was a fun adventure.
Sounds like an epic trip to me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, a lot of fun. So yeah, it's been a fabulous ride, and Fremont County is just, gosh, we have such fabulous opportunities all around us. 45 minutes any direction. You have everything from elk hunting, antelope hunting, chuckers, Hungarian partridge, pheasant. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's and from walleye to bass to lake trout. So geez, we're just spoiled. And now tiger muskies. So yeah, that's
So I got to hear about that because I know Danny was sure excited when you caught that tiger muskie out of Bass Lake. So tell me a little bit more about that.
That was a fun trip. We were out in a pretty small boat out at Camawait, and we were running fire tiger crankbaits, deep diving. We were trying to be on the bottom in that 15, 17 foot, and all of a sudden, zzz, and boy, the race was on, and you know you have one when you hook it because they're just it just got so much more fight than a bass or a perch or a trout. A lot of fun, and so we were smart enough. We pulled all the motors up and got everything out of the way, and it got airborne behind the boat, and then we knew what it was. And then I got really nervous because I knew it was going to go away, and I didn't have a lot of heavy line, and I was running probably 6-pound test line, and I was sure, boy, it's I'm going to lose it. And it made about 5 passes at the boat, and every time it'd get close to the boat, it just zzz, and off it'd go. Mm-hmm. And I'd go, oh, and hope, and I'd get it back to the boat, and zzz. But after 5, we got her in, and it was 38 inches, and for here, that was a fabulous fish. For places that really have them, it's not that big. But for here, it was a great fish. So I can take and mark that off the list that I got it done.
You got a tiger muskie.
Got a tiger muskie, yeah.
I'll never forget the first one I ever caught. I was in Utah with Danny, and we were fishing a little lake called Newton, and it had a whole bunch of them in there. And I had been trying for a couple of years. I'd gone to LAK Reservoir. I'd gone to other like Gray Rocks and some other places where they had them, and I had follows. I even had one that struck, and I pulled the bait out of its mouth because I was so excited because I could see it coming, like a big one, like over 40 inches. Oh. And that just killed me. Yeah. So we go to Newton, and he's like, you're going to get bit. Like you just got to go for it. You got to, just get your baits out there, keep going. Well, like the first one that I had a strike from, I wasn't paying attention like Danny told me, because he said, always do a figure 8 at the boat, or, do a swirl with it just to make sure nothing's following it. So I'm a dum-dum, and I'm running the trolling motor, and I look up and I pick my bait up, and this tiger muskie jumps out of the water trying to grab my bait and jumps as high as my trolling motor and then back down over the other side of the valve. I'm like, crap.
Okay.
I was like, oh, shoot.
Wow.
But it was a few hours later I got my very first one, and man, they hit violently, and they fight really hard.
They are so aggressive, and the learning curve is quite a thing, as you know. Mm-hmm. We get this the one I caught, we get it in the boat, and then we realize that, boy, they have teeth, and
big teeth,
and we're really not going to lip it and try to get that hook out of there. And then we realize that we don't have a hook remover that's long enough to go down their throat, and no gloves. And we realized we were really not prepared for that particular beast. Mm-hmm. But we fumbled through it, and there is now much longer hook removers in the boat. There are gloves in there. So, yeah, we're a little more prepared now. And I can see now that I've done one that I can see how you get addicted. I can see how there can be a passion for, okay, we have to do that again. We need to figure this out because it's what gets in your blood.
I was telling my kids a story about one of the first tiger muskies I caught. It was on that same trip, and I actually had the lure out the other day because I'm trying to get all my stuff organized because it's going to warm up someday. It's not going to be today, but it's going to warm up someday. So I found the spoon that I caught my first tiger muskie and my first northern pike on, and it's a 1.5 ounce PK flutterfish fire tiger. The fish that I've caught on that, it originally, Pat O'Grady had put a bucktail on the treble hook off the back. Yeah. Well, it had been destroyed, and so I had to put new bucktail on it. But I was telling him the story. I'll never forget this. I'm in Newton. There's this little kind of a sandy little underwater, hump that was about 20 feet from the shore. And Danny's like, there's always a fish right there. And so I cast this,
and he would know.
and he would know. So I cast this spoon, and I let it hit, and I just let it fall, and I rip it, and I let it fall, and I rip it, and I let it fall. And I remember it's about 20 yards from the boat. I can see down into the water, and I can see this log following it. And Danny's like, "Oh man, get ready," and I ripped it one more time really hard, and that fish closed 10 feet in a millisecond, hit that spoon, and took off the other direction. I barely had time to think before it was going and screaming and peeling line off. That was really exciting. And then my very first northern pike, I was at Merritt Reservoir with my family because Danny had said that would be a cool place to go fish sometime. And so I went there, and there was this log that was like laying in the water. And I remember I took that spoon, did the same kind of thing, threw it up next to that log, ripped it a couple of times, and all of a sudden this dark shadow goes flying out, grabs it, and takes off, and I caught my first pike. So yeah, those fish are extremely fast and really fun to catch.
They are, yeah.
You did a lot in the retail world. What is one of the craziest things you've ever seen at the store? Because I have a lot of friends when I worked for Lowe's that worked the retail side, right? I did the distribution side. I typically didn't deal with the customers a lot, but they always had some interesting stories of what would happen and transpire at the store level. So I'm just curious, what are some stories from the store?
Boy, there's just, yeah. I mean, anytime you hang out in retail, we have seen some interesting things of folks that maybe eccentric's the word. And some of the things, I learned early on, definitely by a little baptism by fire, but, we have preconceived notions of reality and not reality. And I remember one time a gentleman coming in the store and saying, "I'm really mad at this particular bullet company because that they're reloading bullets for my 44 mag have a little dimple on the side, and at 600 yards, my handgun isn't accurate." Well, I wanted to throw the flag and say this isn't right, but I guess the retail and the salesman in me said, "Well, let's talk about this." And I'm trying to put in my mind somebody shooting a 44 Magnum at 600 yards, and I'm trying to be polite, but it's hard, and he's insistent. So I said, "You know what? This is the days before the internet." So I called the bullet company, and I said, "Hey guys, I have a gentleman here, and here's what he says." And they chuckled a little bit, and they said, "Well, they're not made to shoot 600 yards. And that dimple's there because when we put them on the assembly line, that's where the lead breaks off, and it doesn't affect them up to 50 yards, but we don't shoot at 600. So, and I let him hear the whole conversation, and we get off the phone, and he goes, "You don't believe me, do you?" And I said, "Well, it's a little tough." And he says, "What are you doing for your lunch today?" And I said, "Oh, nothing." And he says, "Let's go to my house and I'll show you that I shoot 600 yards with my handgun." And I want to see this. So I'm going to pull the flag again and say, "I got to see this." So I do. I go to this gentleman's, and we drive outside of town, and he's got a bench built off of the back of his ranch, and it's about 8-foot platform off of the ground, and there's a bench there, and you climb up this ladder and you sit down. And he said, "You see that? Those are balloons at 600 yards. And he pulls out a handgun and starts shooting at them. And he hit them.
Wow.
And so that was a good lesson early on that, maybe there's some folks that can actually do that.
That's scary.
It was. And,
wow.
And I'd ask him, I said, "So what prompted you to do this? Why would you do this?" And he says, "Because I can." Mm-hmm. And so those were things I learned early on in retail that, there's some pretty amazing people out there. And there's some that there's a lot of stories, lots and lots, but some of them actually come to fruition and can be true.
So when you were telling that story, I had a really vivid thought of one of my friends, Matt, growing up. He would be that guy. Matt would be like, well, I'm going to do this because I can do it. I mean, why not? Like, why haven't you tried shooting a 44 Magnum?
Doesn't everyone?
Yards, you know?
Yeah.
That's an interesting story for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've been really, really, really blessed to meet some great people and some talented people. And we cowboy action shot for a while, my son and I. And to see some of the guys out of the Lander group and out of the DuBois group that, oh my goodness, with a single action pistol and rifle were just amazingly fast and amazingly accurate. And, you look at that and say, but he's a school teacher in Shoshone, Mm-hmm. Well, how he can shoot that good. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, so I've been blessed at the retail level to be able to hang out with some great people, do some great things, learn a lot, make a lot of mistakes, get stuck in the mud, fall down in the mud, all kinds of things. But yeah,
wow,
been pretty lucky, been really lucky, been a great life.
It's really cool because I mean, when I was a little kid, I remember I think the first time I ever met you was when I was little and I was fishing at the Rendezvous Ponds as part of the Youth Fishing Derby. And this was back in, I think, the 90s. And you guys were there. You guys had provided tackle and equipment for the kids. And I remember going there and catching a couple of stalker rainbows and feeling pretty good about myself.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you guys have been, like I said, a mainstay of the community for a long time.
Yeah, we've been around a long time and seen a lot. As I was driving here and thinking about the things that, just, seeing GPSs be introduced and essentially open to the public. Bear spray. Nobody knew what bear spray was not that long ago. And the neoprene waders, and then just to look at fish finders, how we, used to have a paper graph
and fish augers too. Like the ice fishing augers nowadays are like head and shoulders above the old school augers. I mean, the innovations in fishing and hunting have just blown up.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you're talking about Onyx. Now we've gone to, you've got the GPS on your phone. It's no big deal. Your Panoptics where you can see the fish swimming.
Yeah.
Right
80 feet away.
It's insane.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And it has been fun to watch all of that evolution and amazingly how fast it is changing. Just in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the amount of innovation has just been incredible. I mean, as simple as I look at, coffee mugs. My goodness. Used to be that, coffee mug would hold your coffee but wouldn't keep it warm. Half a day now.
Or more.
Yeah, or more. So it is just, it's been pretty interesting to see that and to have your access to all of this great technology is pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
So I've had in my mind, David, and this is something we should try at some point. There's all this new technology. You've got these young guns and you've got some of the older crew that have the experience. I would love to put on a fishing tournament one of these days where we strip away all the technology and we say, all right, you're going to go to a lake you've never fished before. You're going to do this on your own with no technology. Good luck. No research, no nothing, and just put the old guys against the young guys and just see how it shook out. Because there's local guys here that I am just in awe of. I'm still not even in the same class with these guys. I mean, they're just really, really good anglers. And I mean, I would love a challenge like that, but it's like, man, they'd probably whoop my butt. But it would be really fun to see something like that. Cause a lot of the guys now, they rely really heavily on that tech.
Oh yeah.
To find the fish. Whereas somebody like my friend Rick that I go fishing with, he just knows based on the seasonal patterns and the birds and the wave action that day, the pressure, he knows where to go. It's like, and I'm trying to learn that stuff because I'm like, that's important because I may not have the technology all the time to be able to use, but that would be kind of a fun fishing tournament to
that
watch.
That would be interesting, yeah. And that reminds me of early in the 90s, we had walleye fishing was a big deal, as it is now, but it was a big deal. And we had sponsored, and for the life of me, can't remember the gentleman's name, but he was a writer in Fisherman Magazine. And he came in and did a walleye clinic in our archery range. And it was fabulous because they were talking about how to use planer boards, and planer boards were pretty new. And it was kind of a neat thing, and talking about fish finders that could read sideways, and we were in awe. Wow. So we have this great seminar. We get all done, and we're done. And so I visit with him, and I said, so tell me how you fish. Tell me what you're doing for walleye. And he smiled, and he reached in his pocket, and he pulled out about a 2-inch by 4-inch little plastic tackle box, and it had 4 crocodile spoons in it. He had a hammered brass, a smooth brass, hammered copper, smooth copper, hammered nickel, smooth nickel. And he said, anywhere in the world, that's what I use. And we had just had a 2-hour seminar on all the latest, greatest stuff. And this guy's got it in his shirt pocket, and that's all he used. So you're right. That would be a hoot to throw the world out there and maybe not have a contour map of the lake and all of the app on your phone that tells you today is a great day to fish.
Yeah.
So, that might be fun.
I think it would.
Yeah.
And just see where people shook out, and and how they did and how they adjust to that, right?
Yeah.
Because
it's
I don't know about you, but like anytime I'm like driving by a new lake, I'm like, ooh, I want to go try that spot. I want to go look at that. I want to go do this. I want to go do that. And I think it would be kind of fun to see how people navigated that challenge and see if they could actually handle it.
Yeah. Oh, I think that'd be fabulous. I made the mistake of taking everything out of my boat and laying it in the driveway while I was putting everything away for the fall. And my wife said, when did you get all that stuff?
You need to be more sneaky about this, Kevin.
Yes, yeah, and the sheer number of batteries and all of that, the world's changed a lot since I started paddling around in a little tiny rowboat to now it's lots of batteries and charging systems and
big boats
and fast motors and map of the lake and off you go. And that was another thing that we heard a lot in the store. People would walk in and say, well, when is the best time to fish? And we heard that a lot. And the standard answer was, any given day, a guy fishing a tournament's going to be under every condition there is, and they catch fish. So you just go when you can go. Yep. You're not waiting for that. Well, the moon phase says today's the day, so I'll go today. No, you just go. You learn it, figure it out, go have fun.
You go do the best you can.
Yeah.
It's kind of like hunting with that too, isn't it, David?
Oh, yeah. There's obviously moon phases, and there's going to be the best day of the month. But, I'm reminded of, the best way to catch fish, have your line in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to go to win. That's really what it amounts to.
The best way to get a big elk, get lots of elk tags and go elk hunting a lot and learn elk, right?
Yeah. And as we've all heard, well, you just don't shoot a little one.
That's hard though.
That is hard.
Yes,
sir.
I mean, because everybody, I've got a goal to shoot a mule deer over 200 inch.
Oh,
and we spent 7 days this last year, Kevin, in a really good unit. And I came home with a 177. He's a beautiful buck.
Oh, it's a fabulous buck.
Anybody should be proud of that deer. And I am proud of him. Mike Kentner here is shoulder mounting him. He's going to hang up here by the others. But I have a goal. It's like I got to shoot that 44 mag. I got to shoot at 700 yards.
There you go.
I have a goal. My bullets are only making it 600 yards. We got to fix this. So that leads me to a question of, we'd be remiss without saying, all 3 of our sponsors' products are hanging in that store in there, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And you've got to see that inventory turn. And as a manufacturer, inventory turn's almost as important to me as
it's very important.
You know, because, getting you at one of these trade shows or coming into your store and getting you to carry the product's one thing, but keeping it on the shelf season after season, year after year. What are some things, that you as the buyer for the store are looking from those manufacturers to keep that retail space under their company?
They have to keep it fresh. And we all have to kind of reinvent ourselves. I mean, so you do have to do that. And I think probably more now than when I first started the business. Now we have a generation of instant gratification kids, and what can you do for me today kind of thing, not longer term. So that throws out the challenges. But for us, as long as first and foremost is that we have to trust the product. So for us as a retail store, at least in my store, it was you had to feel confident about the company, had to feel good about the product, had to know that this is cool. And wow, you put this on the side of your backpack, and now your bow is not falling, it's not dangling, you don't have your arrow drop, you're not worried about your string fraying, and just those things. And you got to think those through. And the same with your seasonings. If it doesn't taste good, it's going to be hard for me to sell it. Yep. And so those are pretty important. But you got to have a good package, and you've got to have it placed in the right place. And then for me, the challenge is making sure that my employees know it and understand the product. And that was the constant thing, is trying to constantly train and say, hey, this is a fabulous product, and y'all got to just try this. You just got to. And we would try very hard to get anything new out to the employees to at least take home and play with, so they could talk about it. Because if you can't, it's just another shiny thing sitting in the corner.
And I mean, like PK, for example, you have other competitors' lures hanging on the shelf there, and if the guys behind the counter haven't gone out and gone fishing and used it and seen the actual, because in the packaging you could lay 3 lures there that are all $10 and they're all similar size and color, and go, I don't know the difference.
Exactly.
Go out fishing, and when one catches 10 to 1 fish to the other, it's pretty apparent.
Exactly, and that plays a big part, especially in a small community like us here in the Riverton Lander area, is that I'm sure every community has got their local pros. And if this guy's using, this camouflage clothing, everybody's going to want it because this guy is successful. This guy, have you seen the pictures? My goodness. And the same thing with fishing.
Yep.
If he's holding a fish every weekend that's big, you probably want to know what he's using.
What line, what reel.
Exactly.
What electric trolling motor. Maybe it's got a better electric trolling motor. I need to upgrade mine.
Yeah. And that is, in smaller communities, that's really important. Yeah. The bigger market that's a whole nother world, and that's where the outdoor shows and the expos and things exposes people to that. But on a local level, it's that local guy that just is good at what he does, and you want that same success. You're going to do the same thing, or try really hard.
Yep. And some of those guys, quite frankly, are just at a different level.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't realize that until you try it. I mean, I look at guys like Danny was as a fisherman, Mark Hill. There's a number of guys that, like, you go with them and you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
It's impressive what they can do. And there's some guys like that for PK, like Tim Jenny. He's their pro up in Saskatchewan. That guy catches, he had the catch and release world record walleye. The guy's incredible. And he caught it on a PK spoon. So then, of course, that was the big break for PK, was that moment, right? Like, that's what really just kind of blew things up for them. But man, you go fishing with that guy, he's just so good. And he's got the feel. He knows what he's doing. He's got the cadence. He just knows how to trigger those fish. So it is hard, because there are lots of great lures out there. There's lots of great, bow packing systems. There's lots of great seasonings. But what I like about our three sponsors is the people that make the company great, and working with them is awesome. Their products work well. So I feel good across the board because I know I'm working with good people and what they have works really well. I was telling Kevin about, my brown trout today that I got on a 1/2 ounce flutter fish. Like, it catches big fish. It's a great lure for that.
Works.
And, I'm always going to use it. And David and I are always using High Mountain seasonings for elk, for fish, for everything.
Pigs.
Yeah, bacon, making buckboard bacon cure. And Kevin, I know you've had lots of experience using High Mountain for different things. What's one of your favorite things to use High Mountain for?
We've probably made I would say about a 1/2 cord, maybe 1/2 truckload of snack sticks, and we kind of at Antelope, just fabulous snack sticks, and the sweet and spicy is perfect for Antelope, kind of like the pepper blend, and we made a lot of snack sticks, and out of the Antelope, and it was a lot of fun, and what what a social event. You got the whole family there. You got your friends there. The whole dining room table has got grinders and sausage stuffers and meat and seasoning and scales. And it's a fun time. It really is. It is. It's something that once you start, you're hooked. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the most famous. I mean, I like their smoke seasoning for the fish. It's fabulous, just fabulous. I've tried my share of I'm going to throw this and this and this in, and theirs works, and I like it. So it's good company, and gosh, they're just like a big family. I mean, they really are. They are just like a big family up there. It's a pretty neat operation, and we're once again blessed that it's in Fremont County. It's pretty amazing.
You talk about the fish brine, that gourmet fish brine. David and I are both sold, man. That stuff is so good.
I've had several people approach me, and they've heard the podcast. Like, man, you push High Mountain seasoning pretty hard. I'm like, yeah. You're like, you're always talking about PK and Bow Spider and this. I'm like, because I'm talking about good products that work. That's good stuff. Yeah. But they're like, is it really? I had somebody the other day. We gave a pair of sheep feet away. And we've had Caleb on here. He's great, and they're custom orthotics. For your feet, you send out a mold, they send you these orthotics, right? And a guy commented on our giveaway, those aren't even going to last a trip, right? And I commented back, I said, well, they kind of have a lifetime warranty, so if they're only lasting one trip, they're going to have a pretty good turn. I'm like, I've had a pair for 600 days. They're in my shoes all the time. I ordered a second pair because I got tired of taking them out of my hunting boots, putting them in my tennis shoes, putting them out of my tennis shoes, right? Because every time I'd go somewhere, I'm like, oh, they're not in the right shoes. So I solved this. I got one in my tennis shoes, one in my hunting boots, whatever I'm wearing, right?
Nice.
So,
nice.
These questions about, I'm not going to promote products that I don't believe in. And when we're talking about High Mountain seasoning, I've always joked about duck and goose is great if you mix it 50% with beef fat or pork fat and make jerky sticks. Well, Patrick used their recipe and made 100% duck with High Mountain seasoning, and they were good.
Yep. Yeah. I used that mesquite blend, waterfowl mesquite. Oh my gosh, that stuff was really good, wasn't it?
Almost as good as the antelope. Not quite, but
it was good.
I'd say antelope's 10 out of 10, and those were 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And we did a whole bunch of the snack sticks this year with elk. We did pepperoni sticks, and then we did the cracked pepper and garlic. I love both of those. Those are really good. Yeah. And David, you had some that you'd done with like whitetail, I think it was, or something like that, or some kind of deer that you brought when we went hunting that one day. That was really good. I mean, their snack sticks are amazing
and easy. And that's a plus.
Yes,
that's a plus.
So easy, I can do it. I mean, come on.
And you look good when you show up and you open up a Ziploc bag and say, "Hey, try this." You never have anybody say, "Ooh, what was that?" No,
they're always asking for a second, a third one.
Exactly.
Can I have another? You got another one of those? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we had jerky. We were out fishing today out at Boyson, and we had jerky that was High Mountain, and gosh, just good.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff.
It is, and right in our backyard.
Right here. Yep. So I have to ask about something else, and it's a personal connection that you and I have. But you grew up with Danny, and did a lot of fishing with Danny over the years. I wanted to see if you had like a favorite story of fishing with Danny that you could share. Because I mean, I know you had a ton of them, just like I did.
You know, we had a lot of fun trips, and you know, for the folks who really didn't know Danny, because he's pretty introverted, pretty to himself guy that just wanted to fish all the time. The minute you start talking about fishing, his eyes would light up. and what was amazing is that you could drive to the fishing area and he really wouldn't say much. And then once he starts fishing and he's way outfished you, he hands you his lure and he'll show you his rod and stand right here and help you. Amazing. But, you know, we went when High Savory over by Rollins got splake in it.
Was it splake or tiger trout?
No, it was splake.
Splake.
This is dating myself.
Oh, this is a long time ago.
This is back in the olden days. and splake was a new fish. It was like, what the heck is a splake? And then we did the same at High Savory for tiger trout. And so both of them there, it was like, the first trip was for the splake, and you know, gosh, never seen one. What is it? And we got to catch one, and that was a fun trip. And then years later, we went for tiger, and the tiger trout, and it's still probably one of my favorite fish, just because they're beautiful. What a gorgeous fish. And so Danny and I made that trek, and he had friends that had snow machines, and we crawled in the sleds in the back and off the back of the sleds and on, and off we went fishing where we'd never been before, and drilled holes in the ice and caught fish, and it was fun. That was a great trip. And the other that probably touches my heart the most is that he'd asked me about 2 years ago to go Arctic char fishing with him, and said, "Hey, let's go catch some Arctic char through the ice." And I'd said, "Dan, that's an awesome idea, but I just can't travel. That I don't have time." And he said, "Well, they're in Colorado." And I said, "No, they're not." He goes, "Yeah, I've done my homework, and there are Arctic char in Colorado." And he says, "I got a trip booked. We need to go." And we went, and it was fun. Geez, that was a great trip, and I'm glad we went. We had a good time on that trip, and I learned that Chick-fil-A was really important. I had no idea that he was a Chick-fil-A fan, but every sign we went by, we stopped. So that was such a fun trip, and it was. Awesome. I'm so glad that I just made the time and went, because got to go do it, and we caught kokanee, and he schooled me on the kokanee. He did not catch an Arctic char on that trip, and I caught a couple. So I had to kind of keep my head down a little bit there. But since it was his idea and his trip, but the kokanee was fun, and geez, he outfished me. Still, battling the cancer and really weak and tired and wore out, and still outfished me. So it was a good trip.
One of the toughest fishermen I've ever seen.
Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I know you've got a story about him at, Lake Kamiawait, being exhausted and still fishing. I can think of a couple of times going down on the river with him, and the guy was completely out of gas, but he just kept going. Just insanely tough.
Yeah, and ready to go the next day, even though he couldn't tie his own shoes. He was tired. He was whipped. He's ready to go fishing.
Yeah.
And that was probably another one of the trips that was just fabulous. Was I bought his old Lund boat. It had been setting forever, and I'd been hounding him for it, and he finally sold it to me. And we go out to Kamiawait, and he caught a tiger out of his boat, and it was one of the fish that he helped stock. And that was cool. That was really cool. That was a moment there. Yep. Still chokes me up.
Yep.
That was a moment that he did get in his boat that he had probably saved for years to buy. and a guy drug it behind his car because he never wanted a truck because the gas was too much money. And to have him in his boat and catch a fish that he planted, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'll have to second that. You know, Patrick took me on a couple fishing trips with Danny, and he didn't say much on the drive all the way out to where we were going. Mm-hmm. And then the one I remember the most was burbot fishing one night. I mean, we're down there at 10, 11 o'clock, midnight. We watched the moon come up. And, you know, I'd never met this guy before. Patrick is just like, hey, I'm going to bring my buddy Danny too. Is you all right with that? I'm like, yeah, we're going fishing. There's lots of water. It doesn't hurt my feelings. And we get down there burbot fishing, and, you know, Danny didn't say a whole lot in the car ride at all. Just kind of me, you know, to himself. And we get down there, we start fishing, and Patrick drilled a couple holes for us because obviously Danny was really weak. I mean, it was all he could do to get from the car down to the ice. And we're standing there, we're fishing for these burbot, and Patrick's like, all right, do this, here's your lure, do this. And Danny's over there 10-1 my fish. Finally he comes over, all right, come here, young man, and he starts showing me, well, you got to do this, and you're doing this too much. And all of a sudden I start catching a few more fish, but he'd already, you know, pretty much showed everybody up. Was like, you know, I can go home now.
Oh, he had the touch, and amazing in that, as Patrick knows, at any given time you'd say, remember that time we went fishing? He would know the day, the lure you used,
the temperature,
and you know that you caught 4 17-inch rainbows.
Yep.
And you're like, how do you remember that from 10 years ago? And he knew it all. Yeah, and that was the one thing about Danny was if you said, oh, you're stretching it, he was upset because he was never going to lie about catch. Oh, he never lied to anyone ever that I know, but he never lied about his fish. Yeah. And he could just tell you that, yeah, you know, I was here 3 years ago on a Tuesday. And, incredible the memory that guy had. And one of the other stories was we had been out to Boyson and caught some perch that were spawning, and we had taken them home, and his mother was so happy. And I can't quite get over this, but his mom was got to have perch and eggs scrambled for breakfast. Mm-hmm. And I can't do it. I just can't do it. But that was for her. That was a delicacy. Yeah. And I still don't know anyone else that has that desire. But yeah, she would scrambled eggs and perch eggs for breakfast. So yeah.
It's funny while we were talking. The other thing with Danny is you never wanted to outfish him because if you did, he came back with a vengeance. I remember there was a particular 2 trips in particular. One, we went late at night to Boyson. We had a special spot that we would go sometimes in the fall, and I managed to have a really good night. I caught 4 walleyes over 27 inches and one that was 30.
Wow.
And Danny caught like 2 fish. And I also caught a limit of eaters. Like I was just,
wow. You were on fire.
My lure was the lure that night. And he said, we're going to go again tomorrow. And
we're going again tomorrow.
I was like, what do you mean we're going to go again tomorrow?
I'm good.
Like,
I'm
no,
tired.
we're going again tomorrow. And he caught like 15 and I caught like 2. I mean, he was not talking. I will tell you this. He was focused on what he was doing, and boy, he whooped my butt. And then there was another time we were fishing below the dam. This was, 6 years ago. And I managed to catch a 31-inch walleye.
Oof. Good
and
fish.
He had never caught a 31-inch walleye. So guess what his mission was for like the next 6-7 months is he went almost every day down there to try to catch that fish or a bigger one. And I mean, that's just the kind of guy he was. He was just very competitive, very driven, but he also, like Kevin would say, he'd put you right on the spot. He would show you how to do it because he cared about passing that knowledge on to the next generation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was, he was at the kids' rendezvous ponds every year. I mean, he just was there, and I just surprised me that he's down there with a cane waddling along the shoreline and
neck brace
and back brace, neck brace, and helping those kids put worms on the hook. And it was amazing. He probably should have had a huge family because his heart was that big. And he's down there. I mean, he was there first. He would be there and help with absolutely everything with the Kiwanis, and boy, he was helping those kids a lot. It meant a lot to him, meant a whole lot to him.
Yeah, he loved fishing.
Oh, boy.
No doubt about it.
Well,
No doubt.
the little tribute wall in Rocky Mountain Discount Sports of all his accolades and trophies and awards. I mean, you go look at that. There's more than a lifetime of fishing that I could do up there on that wall.
And that's not all of them. I mean, that was the. There actually there is more.
Yeah.
But geez, the wall
just won't
can only
fit.
hold so much, and that was one of the bigger surprises to me is that I've known Danny, over 40 years. His younger brother Dennis and I graduated high school together, and we were inseparable. And but we always would go fish with Danny, and Danny always had the cool car, and. So that's kind of how this all happened. And as his brother moved away, Danny and I started to spend more time. But I had no idea that he had really accomplished as much as he did. I knew he could fish, but when you actually see it on paper and you see all just plaque after plaque after plaque, you go, wow, holy cow.
IGFA world record line class, and freshwater fishing Hall of Fame record, and this and that. I mean, the guy just had tons of them.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And here I go fishing with him, and he's in the front of Patrick's truck. He's got his neck brace and his cane, and I'm like, I'll get in the back. He's like, no, I will. I'm like, no, I'll get in the back. I'm fine. You can take the front seat, right? And we go down there, and it's not, do you know who I am, or do you know what I've done? It's just not even a peep.
Let's
We get
fish.
down there, and it's like, after he's caught 10 burbot to my one, he's like, come here, I'll show you a thing or two.
Yeah.
So he really put his money where his mouth was.
Oh, he did, and he'd do his homework when they were looking at tigers to put in the area. I mean, he researched it completely and took it to the Game and Fish and Lander, to the biologist, and said, "You need to do this." And they said, "We're looking at it," and I'm sure he had a lot of influence there because he just brought the homework and just said, "Well, this would work, and here's why," and that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Quite a passion.
Absolutely. And we got the pleasure, all three
Yeah.
of us, of getting to spend some time and fish with him. So
And if you're out there listening, if you want to hear, we've got an episode with Danny. I think we have.
Yeah.
number 46 is the episode talking about his pike slam, and a lot of people don't know he also had a bass slam and all kinds of other things.
Yeah.
The guy would get a goal and he would chase it until he got
And
it.
he would get it.
Yep.
He was going to get it. Yeah. Yeah, I just amazed at he worked with me at the store in between some of his other careers in life, and gosh, I remember him calling me one time and saying, "Not going to make it to work Monday. I'm at the Rose Bowl." And you're like, "Danny, it's Sunday, and I just saw you Friday, and you're where?" "Yeah, I drove all night." And sorry, I can't make it back quick, but I'll be there as quick as I can. And his passions, if he had a goal, he was going to get it done. And he would drive, as you know, Patrick, that he would, on Friday, get off work Friday and drive all night to Utah.
Yep.
Sleep in his car in the parking lot, get up before the boats showed up on the lake, and go fish the shoreline until the boat showed up, and then go back and sleep in the parking lot a little bit, and then come home. Mm-hmm. And my goodness, you got 12 hours of driving for 4 hours of fishing? Yep, do it every week.
I'll never forget this. So going to that exact point, I remember I saw him on a Friday night. I saw him leave because he used to live next door to me. So he leaves, and I'm like, well, Danny must be going to Utah. Well, it's like early November. He heads out, and I'm like, well, he must be going to Utah or somewhere to fish. I see him pull in, so I'm drinking my coffee the next morning. He pulls in at like 9:30, something like that. And I was like, well, I'm going to go ask him where he was at. So I walk over there, and I'm like, hey, did you go fishing last night? And he's like, yeah, I drove to Pineview, went tiger muskie fishing. I was like, and you're back already? He's like, yeah, I caught a 50-inch tiger muskie. And he goes, and I was hoping that you could pull it up on your computer so I could see it, because I guess something was up with his computer. So he pulls out this memory card. We go in the house. I pull it up on my computer, and all you can see is like half of the fish, but the fish is as big around as like more than a basketball. I mean, this thing is just giant.
Oh, it'd have to be.
The head was just huge. And Danny's doing all he can to hold it, because this was while he had cancer.
Yeah.
And he only got like a portion of the fish, but you could tell this thing was an absolute giant tiger muskie. Probably weighed, I don't even know how many pounds, 40, 50 pounds. And he had released it, but he was so excited. He had to get pictures developed, had to make sure that it had saved on his old camera. Yeah. Like he drove all the way home. It was one of those fun stories. But I mean, that guy could catch fish.
Oh, he could. And you know, gosh, this could go on forever. There was, and I was reminded of this story after he had passed, was that Brandon McCarter, who owns Rocky Mountain Discount Sports, Brandon's father started them, and then Brandon worked for me, and then it later bought the business from his dad. And when Brandon was working for me, Danny had said he was going to go ice fishing before Thanksgiving. And Brandon said, "No, you're not. You know, there wasn't ice." And you don't challenge Danny unless you think you're good. So, Danny went to Western Nuclear Pond, found ice before Thanksgiving, and he got a newspaper and laid the newspaper on the ice with the fish, took the picture, and then brought it in to Brandon. And I don't remember what Brandon had to do. There was some humility that was there. There was something going on there. But Danny, by gosh, he was going to get her done. And we asked him. We said, "How much ice?" There was almost an inch, but he got it done. And that was Danny. And there he was, picture with the newspaper. He had to prove it. And he did it. So he set a goal. He would do it. And you got to admire that. He, if he had something set in his mind, he was going to get it done.
Yep.
I never golden trout fished with him because I'm too fat and I'm built more like a desk. And he would take, when he was on that quest for all of those line class records, he was in the hills constantly.
And he would hike. So I've done some of these trips. He would hike in 6 to 7 miles one way early in the morning before it was light, fish all day, and then hike back out and get out in the dark. That guy was a machine.
Uh-huh.
An absolute machine, because we're talking starting at 8,000 feet, going up to 11, 12,000 feet, and then coming back. That's doing
work.
Something. Yeah.
That's work.
You have to be in shape and you have to be driven.
Yeah, that's
in order
work.
to get that done. I have to tell you about this. When he was getting cancer and didn't know it, we had gone that May to Merritt Reservoir in Nebraska, and he was complaining about rib pain and back pain. He didn't realize that he had multiple myeloma. And, but he was like, you know what? He's like, we planned this. It's a Memorial Day fishing trip. We're going to get this done. I want to catch a muskie. And I was like, okay, cool. So we took my bass boat and we went, he met me in Cheyenne, and then we drove up to Nebraska and we took the bass boat out. And he's like, all right, we need to go to this spot and we need to be there at like 5 o'clock or something, whatever it was in the morning. So we stayed at one of the campgrounds there, pitched a tent, barely slept, got in the boat, went out to this spot, and we had fished maybe 10 minutes, something like that. And he caught a nice northern. We were fishing with muskie gear, but he caught a really nice northern. There's a lot of nice northerns in there. And so he was pretty excited, put it back. And I was like, man, I haven't caught one of these purebred muskies. I don't know what I'm doing, still don't know what's going on. Next thing I know, he's hooked up and he's got a big muskie on. And it was over 40 inches. I can't remember if it was like 42, 43 inches. Was real excited. And he's like, there's a lot bigger one in here, puts it back. Well, by the time the trip was all over with, I had 0 muskies and I had like 3 or 4 pike, and he had 6 muskies and 2 pike or something like that. And the guy could just flat get it done. And we were both fishing. At one point, the wind came up really heavy. And so we parked the boat and we just wade fished because he was really good at that.
He was really good at that.
And I remember he's standing over on one side about 50 yards from me, and we're both just, pitching and retrieving. And we see this huge boil and this huge muskie comes out of the water. It was probably a 54, 55 inch. According to Danny, that's what he estimated it was. And he would know because he caught him up to that size.
Yeah.
But this fish comes out of the water, and it was chasing these bait fish called alewives, just chasing it like crazy, and it comes blowing out of the water and then flops over and splashes really big, and we both just stare at each other like, holy crap, did you just see that? And next thing I know, Danny is like, wings a cast over there. He's trying to catch that thing, But boy, we had some amazing times fishing and chasing muskies and brown trout and all kinds of other stuff. So
yeah, I had some good adventures with him too.
Yeah. You got a lot more of them than I did, but it's good to be able to reflect back on those and reminisce a little bit.
We had a lot of fun. We really did. We caught, he caught a lot of fish, and I watched. I bought a lot of gear. And he never packed a lot of stuff.
Nope.
He had his favorites, and he had lots of his favorites, but he didn't, me, I can't carry all the stuff I've got, and maybe that's my problem. Is I got too many shiny things. But yeah, he had just his few little specialty things, and geez, you could just catch fish. And if he said, "Hey, we should go somewhere," it was probably worth going. He introduced me to Sunshine Reservoir, and gosh, we just ice fished that a lot. And Cow Lake, it's not on the map. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Yeah, I'll show you where it's at." And boy, we just had some good adventures. We really did. And we never, I don't think we ever had any major car trouble or anything. It was fairly conservative with him. He wasn't. He didn't just barrel off into something. He had a plan and knew what he was doing, and he just was focused. So yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got to say, this has been a lot of fun.
It has.
It's been really good to have you on the podcast. And again, I just want to say thank you from me for all the years that you put in at Rocky Mountain, and of course, getting Rocky Mountain into our community, because that's been such an amazing store to be able to grow up in. For me, that's where we went for bait all the time. That's where we went to get our lures, and I still go in there to get.
Well, thank you.
Lots of different things. So
it's pretty much where I grew up too.
Yeah,
it really is. And it was great. And it was just dumb luck that I'd made the phone call that made it happen. But I'm sure glad it did. It's been a great ride. And I'm just tickled with this community. We just have, this is probably the most caring community. If there's somebody that's had a house fire, or there's been somebody battling cancer, or whatever it is, boy, this town, it really stands up and helps. So that's pretty cool.
It is. It's a great place to live. I know David and I are grateful to be here. So,
well, I'll say Rocky Mountain Discount Sports was one of the top first 3 or 5 stores that picked up Bow Spider, right?
How could you not? What a great product.
Yeah, well,
and no pressure now, but what's next?
What's next? Oh, yeah. Well, the crossbow model will be available for spring, summertime, and that's been requested of us really ever since we came out with the bow. Is, hey, will it work on my crossbow? Hey, will it work on my crossbow? So the answer is yes, it now does exist.
Good.
So that'll be hanging right there in town next to the others.
Wow, that's neat. That's awesome. And I hope it just gets bigger and better and greater, and you employ more people, and more of the world gets to see what you got.
Yep.
We'll keep it going. But it does, having those retailers, that having that guy behind the counter that has that product knowledge that can be like, hey, have you guys heard about this? Have you seen this? Or a guy comes in and goes, you know what? At some point in time, that bullet manufacturer should come out with some long range, 44 mag bullets. But to have the guy behind the counter go, oh, you're having a problem? Guess what? We've got this product, this solution for you. And I know a couple guys that have used it. Here's the pros and cons. Here's the plus and minuses. It really is kind of a a gear guide, tour guide. It's here. Let me show you the examples of what we have. Here's the solutions. Here's your price points. I think of optics or rifle scopes, right? You can lay 3 on the counter and go, here's your 3 price points, good, better, best. Here's what you're going to get. Check them out.
Yeah. Yeah. And and you hope that that's what you're going to get when you walk into a store. You really do. That's why you're in there. Because if you already knew it all, you don't need to be there. But yeah, to have somebody that actually says, "Hey, come here. Let me show you this. Have you seen this?" That's pretty neat. And that's what we tried to do every day. Yeah. That was the neat thing about the job, is that sitting behind the counter the last few years that I was there, somebody would walk up and it'd be his family, and it would be dad, mom, and 3 little ones, and he'd say, "Yeah, my dad brought me in here when I was a kid."
Yep.
And wow, I didn't get any older. How did that happen? I'm sure I'm not that old. Yeah. I'm sure of that. But yeah, that was quite a blessing to be able to hang out and do those great things and to be let to do those great things. That takes a great owner to be able to say, "Hey, I trust you. You do what you need to do. Just make this happen." And that doesn't happen a lot. And we've all of the Rockies have been really blessed to have those freedoms, and of course we're held responsible too. So
yeah. Well, this will take you back. So when I was a little boy, I used to go in there to see 2 people that worked for you. One was Danny, and the other was Bo Tipton.
Wow.
And both of those guys are killer fishermen.
Yes.
And I looked up to both of those guys because they could catch anything that swam. And so I would come into your store to talk to those 2 guys because I knew they knew what to tell me to get and how to fish it. And so those were the 2 guys I would come into. And of course, Bo's been gone for a long time doing other things, and Danny's passed on. But let me tell you, those 2 guys, I remember them working the counter and working in the fishing portion of the store. They knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, good guys.
Yep.
Both really good guys. I was lucky to have some fabulous people that wanted to be there and wanted to help, and that's the important part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty lucky.
So for those guys out there working behind the counter, go learn the specs, go use the products, know your, I'll say that's one thing I test guys out, is go, "Hey, what's this?" And if they give me the wrong spec or they start trying to fool you, it's now you've lost all credibility with me, right? Versus it'd be safer to say, "You know what? I don't know exactly, but let me grab the manual and I'll tell you what the weight is exactly." Right?
Yeah.
Because you can't remember everything.
Yeah, and be honest. That's probably the redeeming part of it, is that if you, from a retail end of it, if you are not totally forthcoming, it will come back to haunt you. And so just be honest and just say, "Hey, like you say, I don't know this one. That's a fabulous question. Let's
go
get
find
this figured out."
I'll call the manufacturer right now and ask get it from the horse's mouth if we have to.
Yep.
And the other key is don't pretend that you know about something.
No.
Because I was at a different store in another state, and I was picking up a number 8 X-Wrap, which is one of my favorite lures of all time. I've got tons of fish on it. And the fishing associate walks up to me and he says, "You don't want that lure." I said, "Oh, really? Why don't I want this lure?" He goes, "Oh, it's terrible. They don't run right and they don't catch fish." And I was like, "That's interesting." I was like, thanks for your advice, but I'm going to buy it, because I needed one on that trip.
And they're hard to find.
But I was just like, dude, Danny and I both, between the 2 of us, have caught so many big fish on these things. I was like, "You don't know what you're talking about. Don't say that."
We're back to the guy online commenting about sheep feet, saying, "Oh, those only last one trip." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'm 2 years every day on them now." And yeah, I did wear the top cushion off The sole was still fine. I sent them back a week later, had brand new cushion on, and I'm good for another 2 years of every day.
Yep.
And you're not walking, a little ways.
There's a couple sheep hunts and goat hunts and elk hunts in the middle of that.
There's some elevation that's been
A lot of miles.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sheep Feet, if you haven't heard, checked it out. They're not an official sponsor, but I know Caleb, I know the product, and check them out.
Good stuff, for sure. Well, Kevin, thanks again for coming on the podcast. I know you were like, well, I don't know what we'll talk about, but it's been an hour and 20 minutes, and we've done a lot of talking.
Probably another
we could
hour,
go for another couple hours. So,
well, hopefully we didn't, mislead or have folks say, "Wow, who's next?"
No, I think it's a good one, and especially for our local folks that have been around you and have been around the stores. I think this is going to have a lot of value, and they're going to think about the time when they were a kid and they came into the store and they got their first tackle box or got their first, shotgun, whatever it might be. That was a big reason I wanted to do this, because I think for a lot of people, it's been a big part of our lives. I know for me, like I said, I've been going in there since I was just a little guy. So I'm really grateful for everything.
Thank you. It's just been fun. I was a little nervous as I was driving down. Okay, what have I got to give? I really don't have a lot to give, but okay.
Somebody out there is going to hear this podcast, and when they're driving through Riverton, stop in just to see this store, just because of this.
Yep. And
Well, I hope so. Because even though I'm retired, it's in my blood. It was my baby. I put my heart and soul into it, and my wife did too. As both you guys know, you can't do what you're doing without a pretty solid anchor. And my wife put in a lot of hours and helped me with all of it, because we just jumped in and did it. It's what we did. And so what a ride. What a ride.
And then hopefully it'll still be here in 50 years, taking care of everybody. And I know I'm going to keep going there, because that's a place I love.
But I think there's a golden nugget there for anybody that's starting in any industry, any business. Is you just had said it, and it's when you see a need, fill a need, right? Instead of saying, well, that's not my job, I work the fishing department, and that's the gun counter. Hey, they're swamped at the gun counter. I'll give you my knowledge. I'll help you. I'll roll your sleeves up and get the work done, and the people above you are going to notice real quick.
Exactly.
Very true.
Yep.
Been fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. And again, everybody, thank you for listening to the podcast. And we'll come back soon with more Radcast Outdoors.
Thanks again for listening to the Radcast Outdoors podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. If so, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast and subscribe, share, and give us a 5-star rating, which really helps other people find the show. You can find all of our shows, recipes, giveaways, videos, and much more at radcastoutdoors.com. While you're there, please help support the show by purchasing a Radcast Outdoors shirt or hat. Please don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We also have a Radcast community on Facebook called Radcast Nation, and we'd love for you to join in the conversation there. And of course, please help support our sponsors who make this show possible. Thank you again to PK Lures, Bow Spider, and High Mountain Seasonings. Until next time, get out there and enjoy the outdoors.